أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Lesson number 255, Surah Ash-Shura, ayah number 36 to 42. فَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ. So whatever thing you have been given, what is it? What is its reality? فَمَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. It is but for enjoyment of the worldly life. وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. And whatever is with Allah, that is khayrun, that is much better. وَأَبْقَى, and more lasting. For who? لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, for those people who believe. وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ, and upon their Lord they have relied. فَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ. مَا أُوتِيتُم, meaning anything whatsoever, whatever that you have been given, anything that you have of this dunya, it is what? فَمَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Anything of this worldly life, anything of the luxuries of this world, even if it is equal to the treasures of Qarun, what is its reality? It's just the mata' of this worldly life. What is mata'? Mata' is from the root letters mim ta'ain, and mata' is used for anything that is necessary, that is enjoyed, that is useful. But there's one condition. It's temporary. It applies to food, it applies to clothes, it applies to the house that a person is living in, the furniture that he has. Anything that he has. If you think about it, it is useful. You have it for a reason, so that you can use it. However, its benefit and its life, both, are they temporary? They're temporary. So, فَمَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا, whatever that you have in this dunya, it is just an enjoyment for how long? Until you live. So it is enjoyed for the duration of this life, and then what happens? It perishes quickly, or the person perishes quickly. Either the thing dies, or the person goes away. He dies first. فَمَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. So anything, no matter how enjoyable, no matter how beautiful, no matter how attractive, no matter what its amount is, eventually, if you look at it, it is just beneficial in this dunya. But there's another thing, which is وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ, and whatever is with Allah, meaning in the hereafter of reward. That is khayrun, it is much better. Better than what? Better than what you have in this dunya. Better than what you have been given in this dunya. Because if you think about it, whatever a person has in this dunya, it's not perfect. It has some faults. It has some deficiencies. You will always find some problem or the other with what you have, with what you enjoy. You always wonder, if only the color was a slight darker. If only the texture was just a slight bit softer. If only the size was a bit bigger. If only this had another pocket. If only the zip wasn't there. You always have something or the other that is not according to how you want it to be in what you have in this dunya. But the reward of the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it is khayrun, it is much better compared to that which is in the dunya. How is it better? How? It's perfect. It's everlasting. In its quantity, it's much better. In its quality, it's much better. And also in its time, in its muddah, it is وَأَبْقَى. Abqa, more enduring, permanent, everlasting. Abqa is from the root letters baqafiyah, from the word baqa. And baqa is to remain, to endure, to last. So whatever is with Allah is A, much better, and B, it's eternal. But who will have it? Anyone who wants it? No. Who will have it? It is for لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, for those who believe, وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ, and upon their Lord they rely. If you think about it, this dunya, Allah gives it to everybody. Whether that person believes or he doesn't believe. Whether that person is obedient or he is not obedient. Why? Because this dunya, it doesn't have any value in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very insignificant. It's very small. It's nothing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the hereafter, that is something very special. So Allah doesn't give it to everybody. Who does He give it to? Those who fulfill the conditions. And who are they? الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ, who believe and they also rely upon their Lord. So when this is the case, that everything in this dunya compared to the hereafter, it is not permanent, it is of lesser quality, it is less in its quantity, it's lesser, transient compared to the hereafter, then what should a person prefer? What should a person prefer? That which is temporary or that which is permanent? That which is permanent. That which is lesser in its quality or that which is much better in its quality? That which is much better. So it's only logical that a person should prefer that which is in the hereafter. In Surah Al-Kahf, ayah number 46, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Al-malu wal-banuna zinatul hayat ad-dunya. Wealth and children, both, what are they? Just the adornment of this worldly life. Meaning they are a means of beautifying a person's life. But that's it. It's zina only of this dunya. This is not zina of the hereafter. Wealth and children cannot bring zina to a person in the hereafter unless he has used them in the proper way. What is it that will benefit a person in the hereafter? وَالْبَاقِيَاتُ الصَّالِحَاتُ. But the enduring good deeds that endure, they are خَيْرٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ ثَوَابًا وَخَيْرٌ أَمَلًا. Because it is the good deeds that make it to the hereafter. Whatever a person has, he will not take it with himself to the grave. He cannot take it with himself in the hereafter. Anything of this dunya. So never should a person give preference to it over matters of the hereafter. And this is only logical. If you think about it, in theory this is very logical. But what does a person need in order to make the right choice of preferring the akhirah over dunya? Iman and tawakkul. Unless a person has these two qualities, he cannot do that. He cannot prefer the akhirah over dunya. Because iman in the akhirah, that gives a person the courage. That gives a person the yaqeen that he should prefer the akhirah over the dunya. And tawakkul. Because if you think about it, when a person has iman, when a person goes out in the way of Allah, when a person does something good for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will face many obstacles. He will face many fears. That what if I lose out on this? What if I'm going to miss this? People have fears. But when a person has tawakkul on his Lord, then Allah will give him the courage to take that step. And Allah will give him the ability to remain firm on the good deeds that he is performing. But what is necessary? Iman and tawakkul. Without these, a person cannot do anything good. And he cannot remain firm on good. He has to trust upon his Lord. Just the other day somebody was telling me about this one child who, I believe, graduating from high school. And they were going for a trip to this particular city with the school. And you can imagine if the whole class is going, boys and girls, and majority are non-Muslim. And even if they are Muslim, what do you think they're going to do? Eat out where? Go out where? So he wasn't given permission to go by his family. So he accepted. And then he got an opportunity to go with some other friends of his who are much older than him to another country and attend the class and be with the shaykh. And I was thinking that, look, you give up something for the sake of Allah, Allah will give you something much better. When? When you prefer the akhirah over the dunya. And for this you need tawakkul. You have to have trust on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if you give up something for the sake of Allah, if you let go of something, Allah will not deprive you. He will give you. His reward is promised. And He will give much better in the dunya and definitely in the hereafter. But for this iman and also tawakkul, they are required. So لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. And a person who does not place his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will not be able to take any risks. He will not be able to take the bold steps. He will not be able to make sacrifices. Trust on Allah is necessary. What other characteristics are necessary? What other things are necessary for a person to develop in himself so that he is worthy of that which is in the hereafter? After iman and tawakkul, وَالَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ. Some actions are also necessary. And of the actions, remember that amal includes also tark, leaving something. Because when you're leaving something, you're struggling to do something. So, وَالَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ. And those who avoid the major sins. وَالَّذِينَ, this doesn't mean this is another group of people. No. This means that these characteristics are also necessary. يَجْتَنِبُونَ from ijtinab. Jim, noon, ba. Jam. Jam is the side of a person. And ijtanaba is to save one side from something. You come across something, you come face to face with something, something's coming your way. Ijtanaba is what? That you turn your side away from it. You don't even touch it. So يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ. What does it show? That they have the opportunity, but they still stay away. It's very easy to stay away from something that you never come across, that never comes before you. But it's more of a challenge when you have the opportunity to do something and still you avoid it. That's much greater. So وَالَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ. Kaba'ir is the plural of kabira. And kabira is that which is great. And kaba'ir al-ism, what are they? Major sins. How are they major? How are they great? If you think about it, for example, shirk. Shirk is what? A major sin. How is it great? The punishment is very great. How else? The consequences are very great. The harmful effects are also very great. For example, zina. What is it? A major sin. Qatl, that's a major sin. Does it not have major consequences? Of course. And they're much greater, much more severe compared to other sins. So this is how they're kaba'ir al-ism. Now the question is, which sins are major sins? Major sins are those which have been classified as major by the Sharia. Not that a person says, oh, I think this is a great sin. No. It's major. Why? Because it has been classified as major by the Sharia. How? Through some direct, clear text. Nas. Like for example, an ayah of the Quran or a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that clearly tells us this is a major sin. And in particular, it is such a sin on which is khas punishment. Meaning the evil consequence of that sin has been specified. Like for example, when a person performs an evil deed, what do we learn? He will get punished for it. But if it is a sin for which the punishment has been specified, then that sin is which one? It's a major sin. And what is that punishment? Like for example, first of all, had in the dunya. What is had? A legal punishment in dunya. For instance, if a person commits theft, is there a legal punishment for that in the dunya? What is that? Cutting off of the hand. Similarly, murder. Is there a legal punishment for it in the dunya? Yes, what is it? Qisas. Similarly, qadhaf, accusing a chaste person of zina. Is there a legal punishment for that? Yes, there is. And what is that? 80 lashes. 80 lashes. So, first of all, what is kabira sin? What is a major sin? What's the definition? That on which there is a specified punishment. And what is that specified punishment? The first is had, a legal punishment in the dunya. Secondly, wa'id, meaning a threat of punishment in the hereafter. A threat of punishment in the hereafter. Like for example, we learn in the Quran that those who consume the wealth of the orphans, those who consume the wealth of the orphans, what are they consuming in reality? Fire. Right? So they will consume fire in hellfire into their bellies. Now they're consuming the wealth of the orphans. In the hereafter they will consume fire of hell into their bellies. So there's threat of punishment in the hereafter. Thirdly, on that action is also the la'na of Allah. La'na for who? For the one who does it. Like for example, from a hadith we learn, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ مَنْ لَعَنَ وَالِدَيْهِ. Allah has cursed the one who curses his own parents. So cursing one's own parents, this is what? A major sin. Why? Because Allah has cursed such a person. So the action on which is a la'na of Allah, that is also a major sin. Similarly, Allah's ghadab, the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is on the doer of that action. For instance, a woman who refuses her husband, does Allah become upset with her? Yes. So this is also a major sin. Similarly, an action that is clearly declared as haram. An action that is clearly declared as haram. For instance, the consumption of riba. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say concerning it? The word haram, has it been used? وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. And Allah has made riba unlawful. وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. So, consumption of riba, what is it then? It's a major sin. Or it is an action which when a person does, his iman is negated. meaning his iman is cancelled out. For instance, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, "Man ghasha falaysa minna." What does it mean? Cheating, also bribe. This is what? That person is not from amongst us. Similarly, another hadith tells us that لا يؤمن من لا يأمن جاره. The person whose neighbor is not safe from him, that person does not actually believe. So, harassing the neighbor, is this a major sin? Yes, it is a major sin. So what action qualifies as a major sin? We'll go over it again. First of all, had in dunya. Secondly, wa'id in the hereafter. Thirdly, la'na of Allah. Fourthly, ghadab of Allah. Fifth, declared as haram. Forbidden clearly, in clear terms. And that iman has been negated of the doer of that action. And also remember one thing, that if a person persists on minor sins, then that is also what? It becomes equal to, in its severity, a major sin. So, وَالَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ, and those who avoid major sins. First of all, they avoid them. And secondly, what else do they avoid? وَالْفَوَاحِشِ, and also the indecencies. Fawahish is a plural of fahisha. And fahisha is an act that is very immoral, that is very indecent. And it's generally used for those sins that result from shahwa, sexual desire of a person. Those sins that are a result of a person fulfilling his unlawful or incorrect sexual desire. So for example, zina. Is it fahisha? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly tells us in the Quran, إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً. Indeed, it is a fahisha. Similarly, homosexuality. Even that is fahisha. Similarly, marrying those women who are forbidden for marriage. Like, for example, a person's own aunt or mother or father's previous wife. This is what? Fahisha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls this action as well fahisha in the Quran very clearly. So primarily, fahisha refers to such sins that result from a person's sexual desire. And this is not just limited to zina, homosexuality, marrying those women who are forbidden for marriage, but it goes on to any act that is indecent, that is immoral, like for example, nudity, or for example, pornography, or for example, looking at things, at people, at scenes that are unlawful, with lust, with desire. Similarly, saying fuhish words, reading fuhish things. This is also what? Fahisha. Because when a person indulges in such actions, does it arouse his sexual desire? It does. And is that sexual desire lawful? It's not. So, whether it is pornography, or it is saying fuhish words, or it is meeting a non-mahram alone, holding his hand, talking to him, chatting, whatever it is, this is also fahisha. Listening to something that arouses a person's desire, this is also fahisha. Using abusive words, this is also fahisha. And if you see, many times fawahish, they fall under kaba'ir. Like for example, zina, homosexuality. They are kaba'ir, aren't they? If you think about it, they are kaba'ir. But why are fawahish mentioned separately when they are a part of kaba'ir most of the time? Not all the time, but most of the time. Why are they mentioned separately? Because people, when it comes to avoiding major sins, they do that. But when it comes to fawahish, many people fall over there. Many people fall over there. They will not commit zina, but they will watch something that is not right. They will not do shirk, but they will hear something, they will listen to something that will arouse their sexual desire, which is incorrect. So many people fall over here. Perhaps they will not even lie, but they will have a relationship that is wrong. And they will say, oh, this is only friendship. There's nothing wrong over here. But in reality, it's wrong. So many times we see that people undermine fawahish. But we see over here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, avoiding the kaba'ir and avoiding the fawahish is necessary. Both. Avoiding both of them is necessary. It is also said concerning the fawahish that it refers to those crimes on which there is legal punishment. How do you differentiate between fawahish and kaba'ir? Kaba'ir, the list is long. However, fawahish are which ones? Those on which there is a legal punishment in the dunya. Like for instance, theft, zina, consumption of alcohol, highway robbery. All of these actions, is there legal punishment for them in the dunya? Yes, there is. In Surah An-Nisa, ayah number 31, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِن تَجْتَنِبُوا كَبَائِرَ مَا تُنْهَوْنَ عَنْهُ نُكَفِّرْ عَنْكُمْ سَيِّئَاتِكُمْ وَنُدْخِلْكُمْ مُدْخَلًا كَرِيمًا. If you avoid the major sins which you are forbidden, كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ, كَبَائِر, if you avoid the kaba'ir which you are forbidden, then we will remove from you your lesser sins. So if a person stays away from major sins, despite the fact that he has the opportunity, then what's the benefit? What's the benefit? His lesser sins, they are forgiven. وَنُدْخِلْكُمْ مُدْخَلًا كَرِيمًا, and we will admit you to a noble entrance, meaning in paradise. In Surah An-Najm, ayah 32, we learn, الَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشِ, those who avoid the major sins and also immoralities. So avoiding major sins and the fawahish, this is a prerequisite of what? Of what? Entering Jannah. Getting the reward of the hereafter, which is khayrun wa abqa. And if you think about it, when a person avoids major sins and indecencies, then what happens? Many doors that lead him to evil, they are shut. And if a person indulges in these, then many doors that lead to evil, they are open for him. Because if he can do one wrong thing, that will lead him to another wrong thing. We read earlier that when a person does good, then Allah gives him the ability to do more good. But we see that when a person indulges in kaba'ir and fawahish, then he develops a lifestyle of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not caring about the limits that He has set. So وَالَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشِ وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا, and whenever they are angry, هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ, they forgive. وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ. This third thing is also mentioned. Why? Because even this leads to many evils. Anger leads to many evil things. This is why وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا. If you notice ma, this ma is extra, and it gives a meaning of whenever they are angry, in whatever situation, on whoever they are angry, what is their reaction? What is their reaction? Of forgiveness. Forgiving who? Those who have angered them. Forgiving who? Those who have angered them. Because when a person does not forgive the person who has angered him, what does it lead him to? Vengeance, taking revenge, inflicting some kind of harm. Because remember the type of anger that ghadab is. Ghadab is that anger which turns into taking revenge or inflicting some kind of punishment on the one who has angered you. One is that you're annoyed, you're upset, you dislike what the person said. But it doesn't necessarily lead you to punishing them. Why? They're older than you. Can you punish them? No. You're annoyed, you're irritated, you're angry, but you can't punish them. You want to take some kind of revenge. You can't even do that. You don't have the ability. You don't have the authority. But ghadab is what? Such anger that translates into taking some action. This is why Allah says, وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ. They forgive when they have the ability, when they have the opportunity to take revenge, to inflict some harm. What do? They forgive those who have angered them. And ghadab, the Prophet ﷺ described what anger is, and he said, anger is prompted by shaitan, who has been created by fire. And if you think about it, ghadab, it is said that it is such a fire that shaitan casts in the heart of a person, by which he flares up. It's caused by shaitan, and shaitan is made from fire. And when a person is in the state of anger, he flares up, literally and also otherwise. Literally, his face becomes red. His eyes become red. His body temperature, it becomes extremely hot. And otherwise as well, it turns into a heated argument sometimes. Harsh words spewing out of his mouth. So وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says over here, whenever they are angry, هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ, they forgive. And يَغْفِرُونَ, what does it mean? That they let it pass. They forgive the one who has upset them. Why? Out of hoping reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now if you notice, it hasn't been said over here they don't get angry. It hasn't been said they control their anger. What has been said? whenever they're angry, they forgive. What does it show? That because people are weak, getting angry is something very normal. Especially when you have authority, when you are older, it's very, very easy to get angry. For example, it's very easy to get angry at children. Very easy to get angry at those who are working under you. Very easy. But what's the problem? The problem is persisting on that anger and acting according to that anger. That is where the problem lies. Getting angry is okay. However, if you persist on that anger, you prolong the matter, you don't get over it, and you act according to that anger, that is where the problem begins. This is why Allah says, "Hum yaghfirun." And if you forgive the one who has angered you, then you will not punish them. You will not say harsh words to them. You will not take revenge from them. So in order to control one's anger, what does a person need to do? Forgive. Overlook. Ignore what the other person has done. So you need sabr. You need tolerance. And it is only such people who will be rewarded with a great reward in the hereafter. وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. And over here, what do you need? Tawakkul on Allah. That if I forgive this person, I control my anger, Allah will give me something better. Allah will reward me. So when a person trusts on Allah, then he is able to control his anger as well. And we think that showing anger, acting according to your anger, that is a display of strength. That shows that you're very strong. For example, you're angry and you can yell at the other person. We're showing that we can say a lot. Or we do something to the other person. We think this is strength. But the Prophet ﷺ said, the strong is not the one who overpowers in wrestling. But the strong one is he who controlled himself in anger. Strength is not in losing yourself. Strength is in controlling yourself. When you let go of yourself, because many times in anger, when a person is angry, he's not able to think clearly. His emotions come in. His ego comes in. Then because of that emotion, he's not able to think clearly. So, the Prophet ﷺ said that the strong one is who? The one who can control himself in anger. Because if he can control himself, that shows he's very strong. He's able to control himself. We learned that once a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, "Advise me." And the Prophet ﷺ said to him, "Don't get angry." And he asked again and again, "Advise me, advise me." And each time, what did the Prophet ﷺ say? "La taghdab." Don't get upset, don't get angry. Because when a person gets angry, then that opens the door to many, many evils. Sometimes you say words that are very inappropriate. You do things that are very inappropriate. You scare people, you frighten children. You leave such marks on them that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. You will do something that will also harm you. Because in that emotional state, when a person is not thinking right, he takes such steps sometimes which he regrets later. This is why a person who was very intelligent, he once said that anger is beneficial only for the one who has nothing to lose. Do you get it? Anger is beneficial for who? Only that person who has nothing to lose. Because when he will get angry and he will show his anger and he will act according to his anger, he will end up losing nothing then. But otherwise, when a person shows anger, then he loses many things. He loses people. Sometimes he loses his wealth. Isn't it that sometimes when people are angry, they break their things? Isn't it? They make the craziest of decisions and later on, they regret. So only the person who has nothing to lose, he should show anger. But we see that all people have something or the other to lose. Therefore, it's in their best interest if they don't show their anger. And we see over here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Hum yaghfirun." So it shows that the believers, they do get angry, but in their anger, they don't get out of control. They don't get out of control. So their anger is within limits. Within limits. And when they forgive the other person, it helps them control their anger as well. And we see that the Prophet ﷺ, would he get upset? Would he get angry? Yes, he would. But when? For his own sake? No. For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learn, it is reported in the Sahih that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never took revenge or never became angry for his own sake. Only when the laws of Allah were violated, then he would become angry. And otherwise, people would say so many things to him, do so many wrong things, because of which it was completely fine for him to become angry, but we see him forgiving people over and over again. But when it came to the religion of Allah, then he would hold people accountable. Then he would become upset. So he would be angry, but his anger was in the right place, in the right way as well. And even in the state of anger, he would not say anything wrong. We learned that his face would turn red, but he would only speak the truth. When is it possible? When a person forgives the other. هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ. So وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ. When they become angry, what do? They forgive others. وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ. And those who respond to their Lord, who have responded to their Lord. Istajabu. From the root letters? Jim, waw, ba. Istijaba. And istijaba is to respond to someone. And jawab is answer, right? And it's basically the opposite of su'al. What is su'al? To ask for something, to question something. And remember, there are two types of su'al, which is why there are two types of jawab. One type of su'al is, you ask something, and you want an answer. You ask something, and you want an answer. So what is the jawab then? To reply. Verbal. The second type of su'al is that you ask for something. Not you ask about, but you ask for something. You demand something. So what's the jawab? That you give it, you do it. Like for example, one is that a person asks, where's the water fountain? What's the response to that? It's in the cafeteria. Another su'al is, may I have some water please? What's the jawab for that? It's in the cafeteria? No. What's the jawab? That you bring it. So two types of su'al, and therefore two types of jawab. So وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ, over here they respond to their Lord. What kind of response is meant over here? What's the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The call to some action, right? When Allah calls the believers, He's telling them to do something. So this istijaba is istijaba in fi'l, in action. And وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ, they respond to the call of their Lord. If you notice, they respond, meaning they respond immediately, without any delay, without any procrastination, without any hesitation. Whenever Allah says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, they don't say yes, and that's it. But they do what has been told. They do what has been commanded. They refrain from what they have been forbidden. Similarly, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a command, when He prohibits something, they respond to Allah by their action. So وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ, they have responded to their Lord, so they are obedient to His commands, and they refrain from what He has forbidden. وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ, and they also establish the salah. What does it mean by establishing the salah? That a person fulfills the prerequisites of salah regularly, consistently, on time. So basically, if you summarize, iqamatul salah means that a person prays the salah properly. What does it mean by praying properly? Fulfilling the prerequisites, the pillars, and the conditions. Fulfilling the prerequisites, which means that, for example, when the time of salah enters, only then a person prays. When he has wudu, then he prays. He's facing the qibla. He has the right dress. Then, the pillars. What are the pillars of salah? The ruku', the sujood, the qiyam, whatever is necessary to be recited in it, and however that position has to be. Then, conditions and maintaining it regularly. So, for example, with khushu' in jama'ah, for men in congregation. So, وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ, and they establish the salah. Why is salah mentioned right after responding to the call of their Lord? When the adhan is announced, what are we being called to? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you think about it, in salah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. Constantly people are being called, so it's a call. So, وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ, they established the salah. And if you think about it, when a person establishes the salah, he has to perform wudu. When he will perform wudu, would it help him control his anger? Will it? Yes. So all of these characteristics, they strengthen one another. They lead to one another. وَأَمْرُهُمْ, and their affairs, shura, in consultation, بَيْنَهُمْ, between them. Meaning whatever affairs they have amongst themselves, whatever common matters they have amongst themselves, how do they decide concerning them? Just by themselves? And not letting other people know at all? How? Shura, by consultation. But this shura is amongst who? بَيْنَهُمْ, between themselves. So what does this show? That only those people who are related, they do shura with them. And those who are not related, they don't do shura with them. Why? Because if you consult someone who has nothing to do with the matter that you're dealing with, what kind of suggestion do you think they will give? Something that could be completely irrelevant. Like, for example, you're struggling with regards to your test or your assignment. Now, one is that you call up your group in charge and you ask her, what should I do? Can you please help me out? Can you please suggest me? And the other is that you ask someone who doesn't know anything about the course. And you ask them, should I do it? Should I not do it? What will they tell you? Don't do it. You're tired. You've done so many. What's the big deal? So shura with who? Bainahum, between themselves. Themselves means those who are related. Now the question is, what is shura? The word shura is a masdar from the root letters Sheen wa Ra. And it's on the structure of fu'la, like the word uqba. What is uqba? Consequence, right? End result. Uqba, fu'la, similarly shura, similarly bushra. Okay, so it's a masdar. And it's a masdar of bab mufa'ala. What is one of the characteristics of bab mufa'ala? Mufa'ala, mujahada. Doing the action together. There's more than one person involved. So shura, they don't just consult with their hearts, but what do? They consult with each other, one another. And shura is basically when a group of people, concerned group of people, they reflect on the different aspects of an issue. They reflect on the different aspects of a particular matter, and they exchange their suggestions, they exchange their opinions and their views, and then they come to a decision. So, how do people come to a decision concerning a particular matter? By reflection on its different aspects, exchange of suggestions and views, and then a unanimous agreement that, okay, this is what we're going to do. So it's discussion and then final decision. So when shura has been done over a particular matter, can you go against it afterwards? Can you? No. When shura has been done, when the final decision has been made, then you have to abide by it. So what amruhum shura bainahum, and their affairs are in consultation between themselves, meaning they do not make a decision without consulting one another. And they consult one another and do not act hastily. When a person does not consult the other person, is he being hasty in taking action? He is. In order to consult each other, you have to have sabr. You have to wait for that time when everybody can meet up. So they run their affairs by mutual consultation. And they help one another by this. Because when you help another person by discussing the issue with them, by involving them in the decision-making process, then are you making your matter easy and their matter easy? Yes, you are. So it's a way of helping each other as well. Because when you discuss, when you reflect, then many aspects come before you. Your mind opens up and you're able to reach the correct decision. So we see that shura, this is something very necessary for teamwork. When people are working together, when people are working collectively, whether it is at a very large scale or a small scale. Large scale, like for example at a national level. Small scale, like for example running a school or running a household, a family. When people are working together, they're in the same place, then shura is extremely necessary. With who? All those people who are related. Because if a person does not consult other people, this will lead to many problems. For example, if there is a family living in the same house, and it's not just parents and little children, but parents and adults, or for example, grandmother, uncle, people living together in the same house, in order for them to live peacefully, what do they need to do? Consult one another. For example, one day, the father decides, I'm going to cut off the internet, I can't afford to do it, I can't afford to pay for it, I'm just going to cut it off. If he cuts it off without doing shura with other people, is it going to affect them? Is it going to make them upset? Yes, it will make them very upset. Similarly, one day the husband decides, I'm going to invite all my friends over for dinner. He doesn't consult with his wife and she has an exam the next day. Is it going to lead to a good relationship or a bad relationship? Bad relationship. So it leads to lack of trust. It leads to ill feelings. It leads to grudges and anger. So in order to avoid anger, what do you need to do? Shura from before. So for people to work peacefully, for people to live peacefully, shura is necessary. And there are many, many benefits of shura. Can you think of some? That other people, they feel special, they feel important, they feel included. And if you just decide on your own and just inform them later, how do they feel? Left out. They feel they have been disrespected. Sometimes when a group of people are deciding on a matter together, then the best option comes before them. Because when a person is making a decision independently, he's only thinking with his one brain. He's looking at the matter with his own eyes only. And he has biases. But when people are discussing something together, then multiple brains, multiple views. As a result, better decision. People become united then. If you just make a decision on your own and inform them, will the other people agree? Even if they technically agree with you with regards to the decision that you have made, they will feel hurt. Their heart will not be with you. That you accept the decision that the other person has made, but just because you weren't consulted, you feel hurt. And as a result, you don't want to accept what they have said. This is why many times when parents consult their children, when it comes to making their decision, then children, they feel good about it and they listen to their parents happily. But when parents don't consult their children, then what happens? There's feelings of resentment. So it's a means of unity. What else? That each person feels they are contributing. It doesn't become a one-man show, rather, people feel that even they have a say, even they have a share in the work that's going on. And if one person is just making decisions himself, commanding other people, then this leads to dictatorship, right? And people don't like it. Responsibility is also shared. Because in case something goes wrong afterwards, you can't just blame one person. That you decided this, you said this, you took the step. No. Everybody agreed, therefore the responsibility is also shared. You feel more confident with the decision because everybody has agreed. So many people are behind it. And when you're alone in that decision making, then you feel afraid. It's a way of opening doors of communication. That it's an excuse that people get to sit together, talk to one another, communicate with each other. And if there's no shura, no communication, misunderstanding. Like for example, people living in the same house. The mother is making her own decisions, the father is making his own decisions, the son his own, the daughter her own. And if there's no shura amongst themselves, then what will happen? No communication. But if you have to ask your father, what do you think I should do? Please tell me. Then you end up having a conversation with him. You have something useful to talk about. You get to know about how he looks at things. He gets to know more about you. And similarly, when a lot of people are working together, for example, in an institute, in a school, in an organization, and everybody sits at the same table, then there is communication. There is no miscommunication. Otherwise, people only assume, yeah, I think that course is starting then. I think that course is ending then. But when people are brought together at the same table, then what happens? There is communication. There is clarity of work, of even job description. Who's supposed to do what? You basically win the other person over them when you consult them. I remember somebody once advised me that whenever you are doing anything, always consult your husband. anything with regards to teaching, with regards to especially the work, always consult him. Because when you consult the other person, then A, they will give you a very good solution that you never thought of, and B, they will support you. They'll be supportive of you. And if you just tell them, oh, by the way, I'm going to class 5 days a week, 9 to 5 or 9 to 3, and I'll see you in the afternoon and you have to do the dinner these many days of the week, and I will do the dinner these many days of the week, then this leads to resentment. This leads to the other person feeling that I'm supposed to be the boss. You're supposed to be listening to me, not telling me what to do. So it leads to unity, it leads to love, and it keeps people together. Any other benefits that you can think of? وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. People are willing to sacrifice as well. And if you just impose, then people are not willing. Perhaps they will, but they will have feelings of resentment. Peace of mind, sukoon, which is so important. And if people don't have shura, then it leads to division. It's a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ as well. And you see, when people are working together, when people do shura, when they're happy, when they're not cheating one another, there's no backbiting involved, then Allah will also put barakah in the work. Isn't it? And if people are working together, they don't do shura, there's division, there's ill feelings, there's resentment, there's khiyana, then will there be barakah? No. So if you want the help of Allah, then you have to follow His instructions as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us over here, وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. And if you think about it, the Prophet ﷺ, what do we learn about him? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. After the battle of Uhud, the Prophet ﷺ was told that you do shura with who? With the companions. Did he need to do shura with them? If you think about it, no. He received revelation after all. He was so far-sighted. He did not need to do shura, but still he was told to do shura, because when people are working together, it's a very healthy thing to do shura. It leads to many benefits. And we see that after the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, they followed his footsteps. That Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was a Khalifa, he had made a committee of 6 members of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ with whom he would regularly consult. Who were they? Uthman radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu, Talha, Az-Zubayr, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, and Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu. So the Prophet ﷺ did it, Umar radiallahu anhu did it, and we are also supposed to do it if we want to be successful in our work. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And from whatever we have provided them, they spend. They spend where? In the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when a person even spends on his own needs, fulfilling his own personal needs, but they are done in obedience to Allah, then this is also correct. This is also a means of earning reward. So وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, they spend in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't spend in wrong ways. They don't spend wastefully, but rather they spend in obedience to Allah. This includes zakat, this includes sadaqah, this includes fulfilling their needs. So they're not stingy, they're not hoarders, but rather they are giving. And if you notice, مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ, min has been understood in 2 ways. Min of tabi'id, meaning some of, not that they give everything away so that they have nothing left, but some of. And secondly, min has also been understood as everything. Min of bayan. Meaning whatever we have given them, they spend. So basically they spend according to the situation. Whatever the situation requires from them. For example, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, at the time of the expedition to Tabuk, what did he give? Everything. Because that's what the situation required. He didn't keep anything to himself, but rather he brought everything. But we see that at other times, what did he give? Only some. Why? Because that was sufficient. Or that's what he could afford. That's what his situation allowed. So وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, the main thing is that a person should be giving. He should be willing to spend. And then depending on the situation, he will decide how much. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. In Surah Al-Furqan, ayah 67, we learn, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا. And they are those, the Ibadur Rahman are who? Those who when they spend, they do not do so excessively or even sparingly. Meaning they don't go to extremes of being extremely wasteful and going to the other extreme of being stingy. But rather they are between that, justly moderate. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ.